It's been a super Saturday of voting in New South Wales.
After 4 by-elections over the weekend, and there wasn't a lot of love for the New South Wales government.
The New South Wales government has suffered big swings against it.
Vote 1 for Jason Lee, Labour. Go the Liberals!
There was plenty of analysis of what this weekend's New South Wales by-election results meant for the looming federal election.
I do think that people do make a distinction between what's happening in Canberra and what's happening in Macquarie Street.
But perhaps less attention was paid to the way the election was conducted. Polling booths were noticeably quiet on Saturday. That's because the pandemic has meant that, for the first time at a parliamentary level, all voters were sent postal ballot papers. It leaves open the question of just how a federal election campaign may be fought, both in terms of campaigning by candidates and how people choose to vote on polling day, even if Omicron, hopefully, continues to subside. Legislation to give the Electoral Commissioner the capacity to change voting rules is currently before the Parliament. The election campaign may not have been called, but the government is already in full campaigning mode.
Prime Minister, welcome back to Adelaide.
And it is not just the government that has been ramping up the attack.
Join the United Australia Party. Stand with me and Craig Kelly.
The negative attack on the opposition by the government, though, is something that usually only reaches a shrill level in the last weeks of a campaign.
He saved his pre-selection.
We don't
like this, Mr. Speaker. Inexperienced leader of the Labor Party.
But it was already getting loud in the Parliament last week.
The Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese government, has also made a decision about who they're going to back in the next federal election, Mr. Speaker. Now, that's open. That is obvious, Mr. Speaker.
The Leader of
and
the
they
House.
have picked this bloke as their candidate, Mr. Speaker.
And there has been more on social media over the weekend, and with ministers doing morning interviews today.
We have a leader of the opposition who's trying to sneak into government, trying a small target strategy. But we know he has stood for a carbon tax, a mining tax, a congestion tax.
While the government strategy seems reasonably well prepared, the same cannot be said for the rather crucial question of having candidates in place in New South Wales, where it needs to win seats to win the election. As of today, candidates have not been finalised in the seats of Warringah, North Sydney, Parramatta, Bennelong, Dobell, Farrer, Hughes or Mitchell. The party's New South Wales Senate ticket has not been finalised either. This reflects an existential battle within the New South Wales Party. It is not your usual factional battle, but a cross-factional battle between the rank and file and what are perceived as attempts by the Prime Minister and his party proxy, Alex Hawke, to control pre-selections. In case of the 3 of the lower house seats, they involve 3 sitting members, including 2 ministers, Susan Lee and Alex Hawke. A meeting of the party's state executive on January 31 refused to support a proposal to use special powers to endorse the pre-selections of Lee, Hawke or North Sydney MP Trent Zimmerman, a sign of just how angry party members are. And much of that anger is directed at the Prime Minister. Party sources have told 730 that internal polling suggests a likely two-party vote of 41 to 59% in Labor's favour in New South Wales. The latest news poll, published last night, is not quite so dire, but still records a national split of 45 to 55%, which if repeated on polling day would represent a trouncing for the government. In New South Wales, the concern is that the party is now under threat from a perfect storm of One Nation, Clive Palmer's United Australia Party, the Liberal Democrats and the Independents challenging moderate MPs in a number of key seats. What is certainly noticeable is the persistent drop in the Coalition's primary vote since June last year, and that Labor is in the relatively unusual territory of polling above 40%.
Take me to the April sun in Cuba.
It is little wonder that Scott Morrison took to 60 Minutes last night with his ukulele and his secret weapon, his wife Jenny.
Come on, Jen, get into it.
Who took the rap for Hawaii.
Did we make the right decision? I thought I was making the right decision for my kids. I obviously was wrong.
And took on the job of talking about women.
I respect people that, want to change things, stand up for their beliefs and are strong, but I still think there's manners and respect.
It's worth noting how much of the attack on Labor has been taken up by Treasurer Josh Frydenberg and Defence Minister Peter Dutton. Both men are seen within the party as clearly trying to position themselves for the leadership at some point.
So let's put it on the record, because there's media speculation that you're positioning to challenge Scott Morrison and leadership. What's your answer to that?
100% no, Koshy.
For now, there are mutterings of numbers being counted in a desultory way rather than a serious one. The various permutations of a joint ticket, either Dutton-Frydenberg or Frydenberg-Dutton, have been canvassed as save the furniture options by an increasingly despondent party. The prospect of changing leaders so close to an election is still seen as just too high a risk. The sense of mortality in the government is strong.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.